fuel oil system for HHP locomotives. Purpose of fuel oil system in HHP locomotive. The fuel oil system of HHP locomotive is responsible for supplying fuel to the diesel engine in the correct quantity at the right time according to engine requirement. In this system, the fuel oil also play a vital role, and it cools and lubricates the internal parts of the unit injector. So it is to be kept in mind that internal part of mechanical unit injector in WTG4 or WTP4 locomotives are cooled by excessive fuel oil. Major component of fuel oil system. Fuel oil system of HHP locomotive consists of fuel tank, fuel suction strainer, fuel booster pump, primary fuel oil filter, engine mounted fuel oil filter or secondary fuel oil filter, fuel supply return manifold, and mechanical unit injectors. So let us discuss briefly on these major components one by one in different slides. Fuel tank of HHP locomotive. In HHP locomotive, the fuel tank is detachable and attached to loco underframe. There are so many variety of HHP or GM locomotive and each having different fuel tank capacity. Like WDG4 and WDG4D having 6000 liter fuel tank capacity, while passenger locomotive WDP4B and WDP4D having 5000 liter fuel tank capacity. Fuel suction strainer. Suction strainer is connected in the system before fuel booster pump and between fuel tank and fuel booster pump. This filters the fuel oil and protects the pump against damage from foreign material. It is usually cleaned in monthly schedule and renewed after 180 days. Rubber O-ring is the important part and normally it is to be replaced while replacing the strainer element after 180 days. Fuel booster pump. Fuel booster pump of HHP locomotive is a gear type positive displacement pump and driven by a electrical AC motor. AC motor gets power from loco battery during system priming, and after starting of engine it gets power from the auxiliary generator. The discharge capacity of pump is 24.6 liter per minute and it is located near front end of the main engine on right side. Fuel booster pump relocated. Through this slide, I want to say that in most of HHP locomotive, the fuel booster pump is shifted to under gear in between fuel tank and bogies. It has been done by DLW under modification because of frequent failure of inverter of motor. Further, DLW clarified that there was a issue of net positive suction head of pump with motor, so modification has been made. Primary fuel oil filter. Primary fuel oil filter is connected in the system between fuel booster pump and secondary filter. It is mounted on accessories rack. It consists of two paper type filter assembly and renewed after every 90 days or on condition basis. Primary fuel oil filter is equipped with bypass valve and gauge set at 30 psi differential pressure. As the filter element becomes plugged, the indicator will show red zone. At this point, the bypass valve will begin to open and allowing the fuel to bypass the primary filter. Primary fuel filter gauge. In this slide, the gauge fitted on casing of primary fuel filter is shown. It indicates the condition of primary fuel filter cell. Secondary fuel oil filter assembly is mounted on front right corner of the main engine. This filter assembly consists of two filter elements. It is equipped with two sight glasses and two relief valves fitted inside the sight glasses. To understand about the sight glasses, let us move to next slide. In this slide, let us discuss on sight glass number 1 and on its role. Sight glass number 1 is also called as return fuel sight glass, and it is closest to engine body. The excess fuel oil that has not been injected inside the combustion chamber get collected in sight glass number 1 and returned to fuel tank for recirculation. In normal running condition of the engine, sight glass number 1 or return fuel sight glass will be full of clean and clear fuel oil without bubble. If air bubble in return fuel sight glass is seen at higher notch and full load, it indicates that insufficient fuel is supplied to unit injector. In this slide, let us understand the role of sight glass number 2. Sight glass number 2 is also known as bypass sight glass, and it is mounted on fuel oil filter assembly beside the sight glass number 1, as it may be seen in the slide also. In normal running condition of the engine, the bypass sight glass will be empty. If fuel oil has been seen in the sight glass, it indicates that the secondary filter element is clogged. These conditions may become serious and cause the engine to shut down from lack of fuel oil. Mechanical unit injector is one of the most important components of HHP fuel oil system. It is located and seated in tapered hole in the center of each cylinder heads. The main function of unit injector is to meter the quantity of fuel oil with the help of governor and injects the fuel oil into the cylinder during each stroke. The over-oiling of this component is done in 3 early schedule. Fuel oil system of HHP locomotive. The major component involved in fuel oil system of HHP locomotives are already discussed in previous slides. Now let us understand the complete layout of fuel oil system. Fuel oil is drawn from fuel tank through a fuel suction strainer by a motor-driven fuel booster pump. Now fuel booster pump discharges the fuel oil which flow through primary fuel filter, engine mounted filter, and then enter to fuel manifold extended along both banks of the main engine. This manifold supplies fuel to all 16 injectors, 8 on left bank and 8 on right bank of the main engine. As we have already discussed in previous slides that the fuel booster pump delivers more fuel oil to the injector than is injected into the cylinders. Therefore, the excess fuel cools the lubricant and lubricates the internal part of unit injectors and returns to return fuel sight glass and back to fuel tank. A relief valve at the inlet to the return sight glass stabilizes a fuel back pressures, thus maintaining a positive supply of fuel for the injectors. In special cases, if engine-mounted fuel filter elements become plugged, fuel flow to the injector is limited. A relief valve fitted in bypass sight glass and set at 60 psi will open to divert fuel oil to fuel tank. This slide shows a clear picture of fuel oil flows in normal working condition of engine. The blue color indicates the flow of fuel oil in normal running condition of the engine. The yellow color indicates the excess fuel oil returning from injectors and getting collected in return fuel side glass. The fuel oil releasing from return fuel side glass to fuel tank has been shown in light pink color. In this slide, it can be easily understand the direction of flow of fuel oil in the system when primary fuel oil filter is choked. In this slide, it can be easily understand the direction of flow of fuel oil in the system when primary fuel oil filter and secondary fuel oil filter are choked. The causes of low fuel oil pressure in the system are mentioned here in this slide, which can be easily understood. First is inadequate fuel quantity in the fuel tank. Second is a struck pressure relief valve. This is basically related to side glass number 1 or return fuel side glass. Third is fuel filter choked. Fuel filter means the primary fuel oil filter or secondary fuel oil filter, anyone. Fourth is suction line leak or restriction. It is very clear here, suction line. Fifth is injector with tip leakage. If mechanical unit injector or unit injector is leaking, so this may be the reason of low fuel oil pressure also. Sixth is fuel pump malfunctioning. If due to any reason, if fuel booster pump is not working properly, then it may be also a reason of low fuel oil pressure. Seventh and last is that is the foreign material in the fuel tank. If foreign materials are in the fuel tank, in that case, the suction pipeline may get choked up. So that time also we will get the low fuel oil pressure. For better performance of fuel oil system and for better health of engine, we have to drain the condensate water from fuel tank at the interval. Thanks to all of you for watching and listening of this video.